Do you remember what Amy was praying for last week? She was trying to buy land that people worshipped an idol on. And for 5 years, the owner wouldn't sell it. Finally, God changed his heart and he sold it to Amy. Now, right away, Amy and her family destroyed the idol and the altar. And they prayed for the salvation of the people that worshiped the idol. They also prayed for protection because there were probably people that didn't like what they did. Now, when Amy was young, she learned that God was her protector. When she was living in Ireland, she was part of building a welcome hall, which was for poor girls who wanted to know about God. Now, these poor girls were called shawlies, and that's because they wore a shawl, like this one. Probably warmer ones, though, because it was to keep them warm as they worked long hours in a cold factory. Amy cared for these girls, and she taught them God's word and mentored them. She even took them to the fancy rich churches who didn't welcome them. Now, Amy wanted to know these girls more, so she decided to live with them. She wanted to move into their area, and their area was the worst part of the city. She moved into a room that was really dirty and infested with bugs. Yuck. And look at that mouse. Yuck. Now, one night she was on her way to see her mother out of town, and she was being followed by a gang of boys who surrounded her. Amy stayed calm, and she trusted God to protect her as she moved quickly down the street. Suddenly, a door along the row of houses opened up, and a woman grabbed Amy, pulled her in, and the woman stood there in the doorway, shouting and lecturing these boys on their bad behavior. Good woman. Now, these boys could have hurt the woman as well, but God protected the woman and Amy. Later on, when Amy was living in India, she would find herself in danger again, and not only her children. People didn't like what Amy was doing, and so there were many plans to hurt Amy and the children. Now, around the Donover house, there was a low mud wall, and it offered no protection against intruders, none whatsoever, and there was no locks on the doors. And one night a man came and he put a speaker there and started shouting insults and threats. He even threatened that a group of men were going to come and tear down the buildings. He shouted all night, and Amy and the children couldn't sleep one wink. But in the morning, nobody came, and this man had to go. So God protected them again. Now, in spite of all the danger, children were continuing coming to live in Donover. And one of them was a young girl. She was escaping from an Hindi village. She stopped believing in the false idols. She believed in the one true God, and she knew that if she went to Donover, that they would help her with that. She also needed protection against the mob of relatives that were following her. So when she got to Amy, she told Amy everything that was going on, and Amy took her up a rickety ladder, and they hid in this tower above the village church. They stayed there all night, quiet, hiding from the mob of relatives that came around and looked for the girl. And when they couldn't find her, well, they took off. And once again, God was with Amy and the young girl. Now, Amy lived in India for over 35 years, and not once did she go home to Ireland. As she got older, she kept telling people about Jesus because she wanted everyone to be saved, and more children were coming to her. One night, during a really bad rainstorm, she was hurrying along and she fell into a pit and she broke her leg. For 5 hours, she laid there waiting for someone to pick her up, take her to the hospital. Finally, they did. Now, because of Amy's fall, she wasn't able to take an active role in taking care of others. Whenever she walked, she was in a lot of pain, so she was bedridden. Children would visit her, but she couldn't lead anything. And now the people who helped her all those years, they now had to take over running the house and rescuing more children. But you know, what the enemy does for evil, God always uses and turns around for good. It was now time for Amy to write. And she wrote books and books and books, all about her time in India, the people she met and how God changed their lives, the work in India. And she wrote about struggling and how God uses it to draw you closer to Him. Now, God used her writings to inspire people, to encourage people. Her writings made awareness about the India's temple children, and it encouraged the government to make laws against selling children to temples. It inspired people to be missionaries themselves, to go around telling people about the gospel all over the world. Now, Amy died on January 18th, 1951, but God still uses her story and her writings to lead people to lay their life down for the gospel. Maybe you're going to be a missionary one day, some faraway country, maybe Yemen or something. That'd be funny. Anyway, God says that He knows the plans He has for you, to give you hope and victory and a purpose. I bless you with what God has in store for you. It's going to be exciting. Have a great day.